The notion that science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is a misconception that has been perpetuated by some groups. This idea is often based on the assumption that climate change is a hoax created to control people's behaviors and undermine Christian values. However, this claim is not supported by empirical evidence and is often rooted in misinformation. Firstly, the overwhelming scientific consensus is that climate change is real and primarily caused by human activities, particularly the emission of greenhouse gases from burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and land use changes. This consensus is based on decades of research by thousands of scientists from around the world, using multiple lines of evidence from various fields of study, including physics, chemistry, biology, and geology. The evidence for climate change is extensive and includes rising global temperatures, melting glaciers, sea level rise, and shifts in the distribution of plants and animals. The idea that climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is often linked to the belief that environmentalism is a form of paganism or secular humanism that seeks to undermine Christian values. Some argue that the emphasis on environmental stewardship and the protection of creation is a distraction from the core teachings of Christianity, which they claim should focus solely on spiritual salvation. However, this perspective neglects the fact that caring for the environment is a fundamental aspect of Christian teachings, is evident in the biblical mandate to be good stewards of the earth, Genesis 1:28, Psalm 24:1. Moreover, many Christian leaders and organizations recognize the importance of addressing climate change as a moral and spiritual issue. The Vatican, for example, has been a strong advocate for climate action, with Pope Francis issuing a papal encyclical, Laudato Si, which emphasizes the need for sustainable development and environmental protection. The encyclical highlights the disproportionate impact of climate change on the poor and vulnerable, who are often the least responsible for greenhouse gas emissions. This perspective is consistent with Christian teachings on justice, compassion, and care for the most vulnerable members of society. The claim that climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians also ignores the fact that climate change has significant humanitarian implications, particularly for the world's most vulnerable populations. Rising temperatures, more frequent natural disasters, and changing weather patterns exacerbate poverty, hunger, and displacement, which are all issues that are central to Christian concerns for social justice. By addressing climate change, Christians can help to mitigate these impacts and promote a more just and equitable world. Furthermore, the notion that climate change is a hoax is often perpetuated by special interest groups that have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Fossil fuel industry, for example, has a long history of funding climate change denial campaigns and lobbying against climate policies. These efforts have been successful in sowing confusion and doubt among the public, particularly among Christians who are vulnerable to misinformation. In conclusion, the idea that the science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is a baseless claim that is not supported by empirical evidence. The overwhelming scientific consensus is that climate change is real and primarily caused by human activities. Caring for the environment is a fundamental aspect of Christian teachings, and addressing climate change is a moral and spiritual imperative. By recognizing the humanitarian implications of climate change and the importance of environmental stewardship, Christians can play a critical role in promoting a more just and sustainable world. Rather than being manipulated by misinformation, Christians should engage with the science on climate change and join the efforts to address this critical issue.